what has historically made you go? What makes you go? And, number one for me is to create, probably the best possible life I can for my family. We're already maxed out on Marias in the building we have, so we don't even fit there. So we should be on a broader scale thinking about what are we doing with that? I had a philosophy always that if I had the opportunity to go forward or come up or whatever, I was going to take as many people with me as I could.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are sitting here with Chris Haines still of Marias Technology, and we are going to pivot a little bit to part 2 here, where we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other business interests that Chris has, as well as just some of the philanthropic stuff. And so let's go ahead and get into it. You had what you're doing with Marias, and then you saw additional entrepreneurial opportunities.
Yeah.
So what did that was that a slow build, or was that hey, this makes sense, let's build a business plan here? What did that look like to then kind of start from ground up? You mentioned a little bit of what did that look like to start that process up?
So what started this whole fiasco was that we acquired one building in front of us to open a coffee shop.
Sure.
That our employees would at least have the opportunity to go somewhere and get a coffee or something. And so we acquired that building, and when they started to tear into it, they realized the foundation was gone, had deteriorated, and it was basically condemned without getting the stapled to the door, of condemned. But the county said, hey, we're shutting this thing down unless you basically put, $250,000 in the foundation to save this. And we only paid $90,000 for the building, so it's this isn't good. So then it becomes, and I can remember my dad and my parents passed away, and my dad was a big part of my life, but he was the president of our previous employer, and he had left and come and joined us and stuff, and he we were having this conversation about this coffee shop, and then all of a sudden it was like, we're already maxed out on Marias in the building we have, so we don't even fit there. So we should be on a broader scale thinking about what are we doing with that,
Sure.
And so that drove the coffee shop concept to now being part of a bigger building for Marias's expansion. And so it was really Marias and the coffee shop, Glacier View Coffee, which we own here. And then we thought about, we'd really like to have a restaurant here, especially for when our customers come in or for our employees and stuff. And we were, very close with some very close friends in the restaurant business that had a number of franchised restaurants and Subways and Hotheads and things. And that's Pam and Jason Summer from here in town in Covington. Grew up together, good friends of ours, and asked them to really take a leap, a leap of faith and get into something different and open Bosco's. And so we provided the space for them, and they provided everything other than that, the sweat and the work and everything it's taken to make Bosco's go. And we're very, very appreciative of that. But those were the two primary. Now, we knew we didn't want to tear down what we refer to as the dime store, which is the building that we did save. We wanted to save at least one of the buildings. It was not economic to save it. I mean, we're $1 million into a building that had a $15,000 estimate to tear down. Yeah. So I mean, but we after school, growing up, the kids, they had baseball cards and toys and things and penny candy, and everybody'd say, "Hey, meet me at the dime store" or whatever. So we wanted to keep it, and we were putting retail in there. So, I'm not going to say my best decision I ever made was to go into the retail space.
Does anybody say that?
Yeah. But it did create activity in downtown Covington, made buildings look like lights were on, things were happening. And so, we're still, they're, I wouldn't call them a struggle, but, and so it was different. And it was, I don't like coffee. My wife doesn't like coffee. It wasn't our dream to own a coffee shop.
Sure.
It was, and then we made the decision to, open it to the public and not just have it for Marias employees. And, it serves a purpose. there's a place there's numerous Bible studies, card clubs. You know, it's a place where somebody needs to talk to a friend, can meet up. And so, you know, I'm proud of that part of what it is. If I told you it was all fun and games, we've been fortunate to put together good teams in there and in our other stores. And it's just, but struggles I had enough with Marias that I didn't really know.
You're just getting over that.
I negotiated. I was the strangest story was, and I'm not good at working in the coffee shop at all. I cannot make coffee. I tried to be trained on the espresso machine. I can maybe make smoothies in a blender, but I can remember we had a bunch of, right after we opened, for some comedy of errors, it's a Friday night where there's one really strong young man that we had and nobody to work with him. But me. So I go in on a Friday night, and at that time I was negotiating the contract with the legal counsel for what was at that time, and probably even still arguably our highest profiled customer. You know, something where if you were watching TV, you'd see, you know, and this was not an insurance company. So this is some other industry that with what they're offering is they want to bundle insurance with it. So they had this brilliant idea to get into insurance technology and things. And I am West Coast company, or at least Pacific time. I'm negotiating back and forth while I'm mopping the floor, cleaning the bathroom of our coffee shop on a Friday night. 7 o'clock, I'm negotiating terms with the legal counsel on what would be, and here I am just questioning my entire existence. You know, like what am I doing here? The guy who's supposed to be, you know, doing this is, and it's kind of an all hands on deck kind of thing. Yeah. But I don't know any different, you know, at that point. And we were able to close the deal, which was crazy, you know, for us, for a big opportunity for Rice at that point. And but yeah, it's all, I think, and ever since then, I've questioned every decision I've probably ever made with regularity.
I'm honestly, like, I'm a little bit curious too on that side. Like, you only have so many hours in a day. Yep. What did that process look like for you and maybe it fell into your lap in certain cases, maybe you had to really hunt in others, but like, you know, to find those people who you could be like, hey, listen, like, I need you to man this, you know, this thing because I'll help you, but I can't be here behind the counter.
Yeah. We got, you know, we got really fortunate, on the coffee shop side, and another one of these things that, like, the guy in charge, you know, kind of thing. We had, we were able to connect. We were giving a tour of the coffee shop to a neighboring church that really wanted to see it while it was in construction. And so after their service, I came up, met them, and we're walking a lot of their people through. And one of the people, and I had known her, you know, had a coffee shop in downtown Covington that is your typical story. Mom and pop becomes overwhelming. Life takes it a different direction, decides to close it, kind of thing. Sure. And she's kind of like, you know, hey, if I don't really have to own it, I'd kind of be interested in being a part of it, you know, and stuff. And so we were able to work it out with her, and, you know, now all these 4.5 years later, she's still with us. Very fortunate. But she was the one that knew all the parts of making coffee and what that takes and what that entails and what we should be doing on supplies and things and training and mentoring. And so we've been very, very fortunate to have her. And that's Jen. And so that the problem is that when you're running a coffee shop of that scale with the drive-through and everything, it's not only too much for her, it's at times too much for me. And I'm not talking about like we can't handle it. It's like we've got to have a lot of conversations about a lot of things. And when you hire when you employ a bunch of young people, they've got sports and proms and conflicts and ups and downs and things. So, you know, I've been fortunate to have, you know, people, you know, luckily around me, we have my daughter-in-law actually helps oversee the retail and things. And so she's been able to step in and step up. But it all does come back to me probably more than I hope that it would.
Yeah.
And that's natural. It's not a deficiency on their point. It's nobody wants to do something to make it all fall apart.
Sure.
So they want to make sure that everything's all right. But it is hard being, from Marias, I travel, some years. Last year was a little bit slower, and it was still 50 nights in a hotel. So
Yeah.
I mean, and it's from coast to coast,
Right.
and a lot on the West Coast, and so it's hard. Being out there, being in the middle of that and trying to do what you're doing and then trying to think about, oops, a couple people just decided to quit at the coffee shop or whatever
Sure.
and stuff. And you feel compassionate. Like I never want to leave these people, these managers, these on an island by any means. And I want to be there for them, but I don't necessarily have the capacity or the time. And so we've made it work. They are a part of who we are. They're not going anywhere. I'd be lying. We're not doing it from a malicious or suspect way, but like it does differentiate us from our competition on the Mariah side, that our customers can see their money that's being spent with us going right back into the community. I mean, there's they come out, they see it, they love it. They love to go, we'll have like a CEO will let their employees do a little shopping spree at the stores, or like
Sure.
they can go down, we'll give them badges and then go down and get coffee if they're here or whatever. And they like that. And I like that for them. I like them to see that it's not just going to some venture capital firm that is demanding results. It's turning around and going back into, I think that I would consider it to almost be impossible for the three businesses that aren't Marias in our group to probably ever be profitable. It's small town Covington. They're sitting here. The model just does not work to have 30 cars in the drive-through at all times and
Right.
things. And
the capital investment.
we don't source our own things. So like we don't source our own coffee. So we're not buying it at a very low price. We have to buy it for what we have to buy it for. And there's very little markup on anything that we're able to do. So we're actually providing a service to the community, to our employees, and I'm okay with that. I don't expect that. It's not a lie that if the three of them didn't exist, that my wife and I would probably make more money than we do. But it's not about that. It's about, I had a very strange existence, not to go way off track here, but I grew up, for whatever reason, aggressive when I first started out in business. Probably didn't respect even my family as much as I probably should have. It was a lot about personal gain. Mm-hmm. What could I become? Who did I step on in the process? Probably didn't matter, or those kind of things. And then my mom was a school teacher for over 20 years, passed away in 2004 from cancer, left a big hole in small town. Everybody had her for second grade kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And, when we went to her viewing, it was 8 degrees outside and people waited 5 hours in line, like to come through. I mean, and it was nonstop. Yeah. And for whatever reason, a light kind of goes on, because strangely enough, this is the funny thing. I was like 2 weeks later, I was looking out the window at work and there was a funeral procession going by, and it's the hearse with the light going with like 2 cars behind it, and you're you put those in perspective. Yeah. It's kind of like, if I was going in the ground today, would anybody even come wait? Because what do people think of me? And it's not like I have to be something special for everybody, mm-hmm. but I for myself, I don't necessarily probably want to be the second option or the one car, at the funeral and things. Right. And so, I do want to do right by as many people as I probably can. And if there's a cost to that to some degree, that's probably okay, monetarily or whatever. If we're making a positive impact and we're doing something good, that's okay.
The challenging part about once you do decide to make a time and a capital investment into your community. You had this idea that you probably thought was amazing, right? This beautiful building, this coffee shop, this retail. You're like, this is awesome. In your head that like this is not a profitable venture, but like, you know what I mean? Like you're like, this is awesome. This is cool. And when you release it to the world and then you go to see the Facebook comments, like that's what you went to earlier where you're like, man, that really beats you up because you're like, I thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah. And I think what's important though, is that you don't see all the positive remarks that are going around that don't get posted. The negativity funnel is just what it is about it doesn't matter what's going on. There's always some level of negativity funnel and that's what you see, but you don't get all the people who drive by are like, that's sweet. That's really nice. When we drove up, I'm like, wow. I mean, this is amazing, you know, and you don't get to see that, you know, and it's hard to not focus on the negative, especially when you were so excited yourself, you know. It's
a mental battle. You know, you know, at your core, you know that 97, 98% of the people are right there with you.
Yeah.
The 2% somehow love social media. I don't know. I mean, and that's what unfortunately
social
media.
Like a profile picture.
I know. You know, and that social media is.
Well, so you know, you've kind of touched on obviously, you know, the coffee shop, the restaurant, and the retail side, and I think kind of the other piece of this we want to talk a little bit about today was just, you know, there's also kind of that just the overall philanthropic giving or being a volunteer for things, whether it's not for profit association stuff. So like, I know that's something that like Ty and I have, you know, we do as much as we can, you know, with the time we have, et cetera. So like, you know, maybe speak a little bit to what are maybe some of those things that you're involved in here and, you know, what some of those experiences been too, because, you know, there's a lot of correlation and crossover, right. Between the, you know, the community and those different things.
Yeah. And I mean, somebody asked me recently, like, what has historically made you go? What makes you go? And you know, number one for me is to create, you know, probably the best possible life I can for my family. I mean, and you know, there's arguments on that, like spoiling people, or you know, if they didn't have to earn it. You know, like your kids. Like I want to do everything I can for my kids and grandkids. You know, and that's a driver for me. I mean, that's a thing that, you know, I very much want to do. And I if I, you know, at times if something was maybe put in front of them that they didn't have to struggle for. And that's okay. Now they all work very hard. I mean, my older son is here with us, and he is pushing it really hard for Mariah. My younger son is in college, trying his best to do what he's a, you know, not that this makes him special, but you know, former valedictorian. I mean, pushed himself really hard, pushed himself in sports as he could, and did the best that he could. So, very proud of that. But another part has been community involvement. I mean, I grew up in this town to a fault. I mean, definitely to a fault. Just put too much into trying to do things for this town. And people would, you know, in the industry or in other towns would brand me Mr. Covington or try to poke fun, you know, at me and stuff. Sure. And unfortunately, there's, you know, even recently been, you know, some things that never trying to tell Covington how to be or what to do, or not putting Mariah here to play God or be God, but, you know, trying to make, and I hope that people would understand this is, not that I'm not proud of what Covington is, but I mean, we're bringing in people from all over the world to Covington to experience Covington that are our customers and our partners and things. And we want it to be something that there are things to do while we're here. You know, like we are acquiring property that we are going to turn into like living quarters, like quasi Airbnb type thing, like so that they can stay local. They're not going to a hotel and not experiencing Covington. So there are things I'd like to see downtown that gave us opportunity after grabbing a meal or whatever to go do something with them, you know. So I still see that for Covington. I like that. But also the people that live here can experience it and do that too. So, you know, unfortunately, when you have opinions about those things, they're not always popular, and that causes you issue. So historically, I've been on every committee there could be, every organization there pretty much could be. You know, I'm, you know, past chamber president. I'm on a foundation board. I'm president of the Covington Fire and Rescue, the nonprofit side. I'm still a firefighter on the department. Physically, I'm probably reaching my limits, there, unfortunately. Sure. And as much as I love that organization and love those people that I've participated with, it's 27 years at this point. And I didn't do it because I wanted to control everything in Covington, like be in these organizations and step up and be on committees for things and stuff. It's that a lot of times people wouldn't, that's the problem. Yeah, we have, we have so many nonprofits dying and so many organizations dying because nobody wants to step up, and it's different. People are busy, people are working, their careers are more demanding. And so I am very much at a crossroads in my life right now where, we're like businesses do, getting some outside perspective on Marias. And right now we're having some people look at the organization for us and what we're doing and what we're all doing. And they were point blank with me recently about, hey, Chris, know you love your community, know you love what's going on, but you're going to have to step out, that kind of stuff. Marias is at a point where it's rapidly growing and it's doing things and you're needed for it and you're needing, and so we want to provide as much support as we can if we have the opportunity, maybe from a monetary standpoint, but, and unfortunately there are probably some people in the community that look at me differently and look at it, I'm possibly abandoning some things and stuff. And it's not really about that. It's about like, I've got to do what's right for the organization. And this has been a year of reflection and, why are we, can we do that? Can I pull somebody off of something at Marias and be in that role at that organization? And sometimes we can't. If I'm asking them to voluntarily work overtime and push as hard as they can to keep the organization what it needs to be, I can't expect them to be chairman of this committee or on this committee and things. And so I hate that. I hate that people now, I mean, where it starts at the core is, I grew up in this town with my grandparents, and I loved my grandparents' friends. I mean, my grandparents were their friends. It was all, as you look back, kind of that Rat Pack generation, like those people that like card club, bowling, like bowling team, like all that cool stuff. They all met like every Friday night was the same restaurant, like that was, I love that. And I used to I was, by another flaw, as kind of an adult from birth, so I always I didn't necessarily hang out with the kids at things. I'd just go be in the adult conversations and stuff. And I loved that. And I love hearing that. But I wanted to do something for Covington to take the tax burden or those kind of burdens away from that generation, which then became my parents' generation as we all grew up and as they're retiring. And we voluntarily didn't take a tax abatement on the building. And so we wanted to pay tax. The village established a downtown revitalization district that we funneled some of our tax into that. And I participate on the board of that. And but my goal was to let's let Marias come in. Marias can make as much as it can so that we can pay tax. Our employees can pay payroll tax. So we didn't ask for an abatement on their payroll tax. Like, let's do what we can to pay for police cruisers or garbage trucks or whatever we can to help out. Let that be a byproduct. I had a philosophy always that if I had the opportunity to go forward or come up or whatever, I was going to take as many people with me as I could. So,
And I think, to that point, like at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to even like what you said about the 98 being with you and the 2%. I know just from the time and effort sometimes that, you do things, you almost just sometimes just say like, hey, like I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. And, you like you're saying, right?
Or like, why didn't I push Marias as hard? Why did I do the rest of this stuff? Why didn't I push Marias as hard as I possibly could and pocket all that money?
Yeah.
And here I made these decisions for the last several years to be philanthropic, put things at times in front of probably our organization where I should have been concentrating on what we were doing. And, we could have put, when Marias had to make that decision to build the building downtown, could have bought an abandoned warehouse in a neighboring community and just put a bunch of cubicles in there and just churned money. I mean, just plowed away at what we were doing without the distraction of a coffee shop. I mean, we haven't even got to the fact that we own a 1910 opera house that we'd like to restore across the block. I mean, but we own, we have that
Might need a
as
part
well.
two for Chris.
Yeah. I mean, but and so now you're sitting here saying, okay, we're looking at that saying, well, that's probably $5 or $6 million spend to get that thing back. And it's like,
there's something driving you though.
Yeah.
There's something there. And I think that's what you do. What makes you sleep at night? What makes you feel good?
Yeah.
I really appreciate the rawness of what you're talking about because like everybody can talk about all the great things that they're doing and it sounds awesome, but like there's a reality to the ups and downs of it and how it makes you feel. And it's really nice to hear it because I feel it. Yeah. I'm sure you feel it, Grant. Like, and I'm sure other people listening to this feel those types of feelings as they.
And I hate that feeling. It's life. It's reality.
Yeah.
I probably wanted to not experience that part of reality because I don't want to. I don't want to be that guy that's just gung ho on. Let's do this. But at the same time, I will tell you that like. I feel right now as we're pulling out of some of that, or I'm personally exiting some of those community type roles, where Marias is headed or the opportunity to be a part of that. I mean, I love to go to conferences. I mean, some people hate that, but I mean, and I'm lucky enough that my wife gets to travel with me a pretty fair amount because spouses are there at a lot of these events. And so it's integrated in if we're going to meals or going to things like their spouses. So it makes sense for my spouse to be there. But I like seeing people in the industry. I like that. Like I like getting out and experiencing that. And some people, I mean, one of our conferences has gone to like a 11-hour day in the booth, which is brutal. I don't know why that is like what we're doing, but that's hard at times or whatever. But so there's a little bit of excitement, even though there's a little bit of disappointment about some of this stuff.
Yeah. So, as we kind of, wrap things up, and we've covered a lot of different things today. And I think that this is, we're probably going to make this a two-parter because we have very like good kind of two steps of this. But no, we've covered just from, again, the real stories of just, how this business grew and, the directions that you've made along the way, especially as it pertains to just like not overextending yourself, to, what happened as, business opportunities happen, as bad things happened during COVID, the just what blossomed then out of that to just how, there became other opportunities and other business units. And then obviously like, the people impact, which is, what's happening within the communities and the perception and maybe, things that you maybe internalize or things that are real and you're like, oh, I have to address them. And so I just want to say again, like how much we appreciate like you just sharing that insight. As we wrap things up, I want to ask you one kind of final question here. And that is, to a lot of our listeners who are those folks who are maybe business owners themselves, of multiple different sizes, or there are folks who are looking to get into, those leadership positions, oftentimes folks who are then going to be looked at to have positions and, on boards and charitable entities. So, as you look back, or maybe as you see what the people are doing now, like what would be like one piece of advice that you would maybe leave them, or maybe one thing that they should consider as they're going about that? And that could be a tough question. So
yeah, I think it is. I think it's really tough. I mean, I don't have any regret, on what I did. I definitely would do many things very differently. But I guess they've all kind of made me who I am and where I'm at. There between this and even some outside of work struggles that our family has had at times and stuff. I mean, I just feel that I've accumulated this like large pile or wealth of knowledge about almost everything in the world that I don't know what I'm going to do with. I'm not that guy that like wants to jot it all down in a book that somebody may not read. I mean, I don't know, Sure. And so I'm not sure that I have the perfect advice. I I think that people have to really, really thoughtfully think about what they want, what their desire is, because it's okay, I guess, to be whatever that you want to be. I'm not sure everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Like sitting here, like I have built such a great appreciation for the mom and pops that are running all these little boutiques and coffee shops and things. And I have no idea how they're doing it. I don't. And I know they're struggling. I know that there's a lot of tears. I probably believe that male, female doesn't, there's a lot of probably going home at night and looking in the mirror saying, how are we going to pull this off? How are we going to keep this going? And for what? This is very cynical, I guess, but I've gotten to the point where the only person I could recommend to open some kind of small town business like that is if you've got some kind of other large fund of money coming in, like you're either the significant other of somebody that's got some kind of role that's doing that, or you've sold out and you got this pile of money and you want to do it because, man, it's tough. I can't imagine the way that suppliers raise prices on you, things go up, just things that are out of your control. And then also, that public perception, like that. I have a hard time with online reviews and things, because everybody's just doing the best they can. So in that aspect, I had a young person talk to me lately about, opening like something like that. And I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. And doing that because I don't know when you have to someday pay for your kid's wedding potentially or your kid's college, how are you going to do that on the margin that you're doing at a small town coffee shop, or something like that you're running? So that's hard, now if it's your dream and following your dream. And as I talk about, like when I go to the schools and talk, you don't see a bunch of Ferraris in the parking lot at the school, but so these people that are in education and those things, they're doing it for some other reason, a higher calling. They want to help the world, change the world, mold the future. I have a lot of appreciation for that. I get that. I understand that their life may not be about shiny things or material things, and that's great. And I have friends that have college degrees that have chosen to go into careers that didn't need college degrees, that are maybe in municipal, working in for towns and villages and doing the things, but it provided them the kind of life that their weekends they could go do what they wanted to do without worrying about what's going to happen at work. And so, I envy that a little bit. But also there's this, challenge and this desire to go do something and build something. And if you've got the stomach for it, or whatever, and you've got the mental aptitude for it, there's give it a shot. There's probably things I would have done different about corporate structure and makeup and things. And maybe I didn't know because I just didn't know that I would do the research. I would talk to people. I was probably early in my career kind of a know-it-all. And now I don't think that, I'm not one of those people that really has the desire to go to like a management seminar or to make myself better. But I love to read and pick up things out of books about which may make me better. I do look at my life as a constant, ever evolving, constantly looking for ways to get better, but not for the sake of just thinking I need to get better, but for wanting to get better. Like you don't go to a seminar and learn some concept and come back to work and just instantly put it in place without thinking of the ramifications. There have been popular things in the past where eliminating offices and everybody, including the CEO, sits out in cubicles together. But now you can't have calls with anything that's you can try to go to a conference room, but you're in the conference room the whole time. So there are these great things about that seem great that may be better. But I think that, and also I guess just be proud of yourself and whatever you do. That back to that story about the person at the fast food restaurant. I have a lot of appreciation there. I hope that to show up for 50 years to the same job for every day, regardless of the changes. And imagine the change from then to now, and how many times they had to get yelled at for the price raising on something when a hamburger was 5 cents and now it's not. But it's like, but I hope that their family and their kids are super proud of them and know what that took to pull off. I think that, that's the thing, is to do something to just kind of, don't get down on yourself. Don't be proud of yourself. Even if there's something that doesn't work out, failure, and you got to go do something different, find something different or whatever. But, also don't become complacent. Don't, fear is a driver, let that, always be realistic that everything is easy come, easy go. And, and I think it's probably, not to get too far off the business track, find the right person to spend your life with. That's work too. And that relationship is work. And it's much more rewarding to do something for people. I mean, those moments, and I know that life's not all about this, because maybe this isn't important to people, but I'm one of those people that I love the happy tears on Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Like when you have the opportunity to put something in front of somebody that keeps me pushing. Like I love that. If I have the problem of wearing the same jeans until they wear out. I'm not really good at like spending money and buying those things in that kind of way, but I will on other people. I mean, crazy as much as I can afford. Yeah. And that's cool. Find what your driver is, and whatever it is, whatever job you decide to do your best, make those things happen, and no regrets, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I think that's something that many of our viewers in many different ways can resonate with. So thank you again, Chris. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Next Gen Strategies podcast. You can continue to like, subscribe, follow us on all the different social channels. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Thanks for tuning in to the Next Gen Strategies podcast, where we share real stories and practical strategies to help you grow your business. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to like and share it on all of our social media channels.